For more on the crisis, I spoke earlier today with Josh Lockman. He's a fellow at the Truman National Security Project, and he teaches international law and U.S. foreign policy at the University of Southern California. And I asked him what NATO's role is in all of this crisis.
NATO's role in the Ukraine crisis right now is really limited to denunciatory rhetoric at what Russia is doing to destabilize Ukraine, as we're seeing today. More activity from pro-Russian militias in eastern Ukraine. As of now, NATO has limited leverage in intervening in any capacity, obviously. There's no military solution to the Ukraine crisis that involves NATO. But that being said, NATO is keeping a mindful watch of how its reaction to the Ukraine crisis will influence or shape the fears or expectations of key states in Eastern Europe, namely Poland, Czech Republic, also the Baltic states as well. NATO knows that if it is not stern or muscular enough in its response or rhetoric, this will create a number of fears among Eastern European allies and countries that do fear if Ukraine today, it could be very well them tomorrow.
But NATO, in a sense, is part of the problem, too, isn't it? I mean, the fact of the matter is Russia doesn't want NATO encroaching that much closer to them. I mean, isn't this kind of part of the reason why we're seeing a lot of the issues that we're seeing now?
I don't think anybody anticipates that Ukraine will join NATO anytime soon, especially given the upheaval that's taking place. I think what Russia and what President Vladimir Putin have done quite masterfully and manipulatively is play into an argument of international legal principles to defend ethnic Russians living in Ukraine, possibly use that same argument in other parts of that sphere of influence to intervene and violate Ukraine's territorial integrity. At this point, NATO is doing no such thing. It's, in fact, taken only limited actions and is playing much more of an observer role in this crisis as it plays out.
The anti-terrorist operation, this is a chess match in many respects. Russia does one thing, Ukraine does another. What do you see as Russia's next move?
I think that as we head into the week toward the conference in Geneva on Thursday, Russia will try to continue to foment the type of unrest and chaos that led to Ukraine's acting president making the decision today to start a military operation to root out or at least subvert these so-called pro-Russian militias in eastern Ukraine. I think Russia sees chaos to some degree to its advantage going into those talks. This kind of follows, the classic KGB logic: create a problem and then solve it. In many ways, Putin sees an opportunity to underscore his argument for federalization or decentralization of the Ukraine by making it appear that large swaths of eastern Ukraine do not want to be under the control of Kiev. They would prefer, in theory, or according to Putin's perspective, to be under the control of the Kremlin.
Viktor Yanukovych said the other day that Ukraine has taken one step into a civil war. Would you agree with him? I mean, can this thing be sewn back together?
The more that this escalates, I think this could very well lead to civil war in Ukraine. And that is a dangerous outcome, not only for the Ukrainian people, of course, but for the West and for Russia itself. Any prolonged conflict that led to some type of escalation could very well lead to unintended consequences, in which case there could be even further unrest beyond Ukraine's borders. Again, as I mentioned, countries such as Poland, Czech Republic, and others, if they feel threatened by encroaching Russian influence or some type of muscular Russian response, could appeal to NATO for some type of more concerted defensive action in Eastern Europe. And I think that would be a horrific scenario to take place, obviously. Could Ukraine be a theater of action? It doesn't seem likely, but then again, nobody predicted what took place in Crimea only a few weeks ago.
Josh Lockman, thanks so much for your observations. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Mike.